So I want to talk to you about our case, our experience in editing this journal, but also to try and introduce you to some of the reasons why we set it up, why we thought there was a market for this journal, and also perhaps reasons why Intellect kindly agreed to do business with us. The idea is much older than 2009. I was just talking to Sally there that initially we set this up in 2006, but we started publishing with Intellect from 2009. So obviously there's a gap, and I say to her, you hear there's a much longer story as to what happened there, why we did not start publishing in 2006. The idea arose after one of an African colleague editing Africa Week, Desmond Davis. He's a Sierra Leonean. He read one of my articles and he says, "Oh, the things that we are raising here, Winston, are very important. Why don't we start a journal? Why can't you be the editor?" By then I had just finished my PhD. It was very raw. I was thinking, starting a journal, let alone getting my work published. And then Desmond Davis said that his company, Africa Week, was being published by Trans-Africa Publications, was going to publish this new journal. And then after so many meetings, we discovered that they did not have any, they did not have resources. I used to go to the meetings with Colin Sparks. I think some of you know Colin Sparks. He was our head of research, very supportive. So we used to meet in London. Then after a while, Colin Sparks said, "Is this guy of yours really serious?" Then a colleague by then was already doing business with Intellect. He was publishing the Journal of Arab Media Studies, Noureddin Miladi. He recommended that why don't we leave this other company and try Intellect? They don't waste people's time. They offer, because with that other company, they wanted us to put in money. They wanted us to. They were publishing initially, some flyers, and they were drawing up. They were interested in drawing up business case contracts and things like that, which, when you are beginning the business, you don't quite understand. You think, "Oh, this makes sense." so we're signing all these things and not knowing that it's not good for us. Yeah. Then when we talked to Intellect, we then told them that, "Look, we gave you a chance since 2006. This is 2008. There's nothing, on the table. Yeah? We've given you people's articles. You've kept them for over a year. This is not on. Yeah." Then they started to say, "If you move to another company, you're going to pay us 50-something thousand, or quite a lot of money." And we were talking to lawyers at the university. Colin Sparks was red. He couldn't believe it. But then we managed to talk to get some legal friends at the university, some people to saying, the contracts that we had are not really binding. So we managed to move to Intellect, and Intellect were very supportive also in the transition. They were telling us that first talk to that company and make sure that you live on good terms if you are leaving them. And what we got from Intellect was really, really excellent support. When we came here with the articles and with papers, we started afresh to really think through the ideas and launch the journal afresh. And things happened rapidly. I think we published within 3 months of joining them. And 2009 was the year. I think it was less than 3 months after joining, and then the 3 issues for 2009 also came rapidly, and we were really reassured. It was like a relief after walking through a desert, coming to a point where there was, So what I want to do now is to say this Journal of African Media Studies is obviously based here. We knew that there was going to be an issue to say, why do we publish a Journal of African Media Studies from London? Yeah? But I was based at Westminster, and I thought there was a gap when we are trying to do research on African media issues. There was no material on Africa, and this was an opportunity to try and contribute to the body of work that would inform work on African media and communications research. So the journal, after 2006, it took a very focused kind of trajectory. We were very clear about what we were doing, and we were also very clear that what we wanted was to offer a platform. Remember, I was a junior researcher at this stage, just finished. We wanted to very much offer a platform which is accessible not only to established writers, but also to junior and upcoming researchers, scholars, and also professionals, people working in the industry who have something important to say, musicians, artists. So we wanted a broader kind of debate about media and communications and related kind of topics. And we were also mindful, because when you are setting up a journal, you are thinking about the advisory board, isn't it? It's one way of testing whether the market really takes you seriously. So when you approach all these established people and say, do you mind if we put you on our advisory board? Some will say, well, thank you very much, but no thanks. Some will say yes. So we managed to put together a very good list of scholars that were on our advisory board. In terms of the editorial board, the actual people to work with, I had Wendy Williams. I don't know whether you know her. She's an associate editor of the journal. She was in South Africa. She's coming back to the LSE now. I was talking to Sally. She's coming to join Sally. And we struggled to find other people. So we ended up with about 7 people on the editorial board. As an editor, you're thinking an editorial board, this is the board that you work with on a day-to-day basis to decide on the articles. So it was a crucial kind of board. So I ended up thinking of even students that were in the department who were doing, were doing work that was pointing to African media and communications. So I had, for example, Wendy Williams was a student at SOAS, doing a PhD on Zimbabwe media. Then we approached Monica Shibita. We had just finished a PhD at UNISA in South Africa. Then we had Martin Kosingela, who is a professor in Norway. And then we had Nuruddin Miladi. He's from Tunisia, but he was already publishing his Journal of Arab Media Studies. But we thought Africa is much more diverse. Then we had Maria Way, a colleague in the department, Herman Wasserman, who was at Sheffield at that time. So it was a bit, an editorial team is very important, but again, I was asking myself, are these people going to support the idea? Or I would just have articles in my mailbox, and these people refusing to review. To some extent, it worked. They were supportive. They were, But I would say that now what we have decided to do, or what I have decided to do, is to deal with just 4 of the 8 people that we started with. The other 4 people are still important. But the 4 people are 2 associate editors, a book reviews editor, who also doubles up as a film reviews editor, and myself. So the 4 of us are the core team of the journal. And to some extent, to base it on the 4 people has been very effective. When we were basing it on the 8 people, sometimes tasks were not completed. It was too big a circle to ask people to do things. So I would say in terms of the editorial composition, that was, and we also tried, I know you do this, to use the advisory board as reviewers, as people who consider the material after they come in. Yeah? It was not very easy to get advisory board members to review. These are people who are already busy, yeah? And because they are superstars in the field, yeah? They are super busy, so when you send the material, you may not get a reply, let alone a review of the article. Yeah? And it's because they are involved, they are doing many things. So we decided not to overly rely on the advisory board for reviewing. But we again decided to use the core team so that we allocate it to appropriate reviewers. But I will come back to that later. I wanted to say, in terms of sourcing articles, it's very much linked to the purpose of the journal. The purpose of the journal, like I said, was to consider material more widely, not only in terms of media and communications aspect, but to go even into the non-mediated, even into cartoons, to look at things that are not your usual media and communications aspects. And to open it up so that we invite submissions that will cover a broad range of topics, rather than to narrow it to media or reports analyzing what comes out in the media. We did not want that, because we think that the media are very much implicated in society, are very much part of a broader social field. So we wanted to open it up to a range of topics, to include those who are writing about journalism, those who are doing stuff about music, those who are into even politics, and development, people who are writing about theater, people who are writing about jokes, for example. We thought that mobile phones, internet, radio, we thought that broadening the research topics would be an attractive way of sourcing articles. And to some extent, this has worked. We have received articles that focus on all kinds of topics. Yeah? For example, there was one on reggae in Côte d'Ivoire, which was responding again to our open call. There are people who are writing about oral media, for example, in the Ivory Coast as well. People writing about music. And we think this is something that relates to how we pitch the journal on the market. We intended to be very different from existing journals by providing a journal that is multi-platform, multi-focused. Yeah? Because we think, in terms of the media, people will be reading and listening and doing sometimes these things, at the same time. It is very important, and also to think about the context which we are writing about. When we are talking about Africa, the word of mouth tends to be very strong. There are certain spaces which are non-mediated. A lot of people in Africa still rely on their opinion leaders to reinterpret what is in the media. So we wanted to take into account these kind of developments. And to some extent, it sort of worked. Then in the design of the journal, it was something which was suggested by Intellect, which we liked very much. They talked about a visual essay. They said, well, we are a company that, because with Trans-Africa, the other company, they were very worried about publishing images. With Intellect, they said, well, we encourage you to include images. We couldn't believe our luck. And they said, well, you can do some things like a visual essay, which can be a way of generating debates about African media and communications. So in our first issue, we had somebody from the contemporary art media practice at Westminster. He had gone to Egypt and photographed these big advertisements in the desert. He called it Fata Morgana, because he thought they were like, very unusual, pieces in the desert. You are driving in the desert, suddenly you find a big billboard. Yeah, so so he took a lot of images, which he called the sequence Fata Morgana, and we published that in our first issue, and it worked out very well. And ever since, we have been having a visual essay, 1,000 words, accompanied by 10 to 12 pictures of whatever topic. We have had somebody going to China to look at Africans who live in China, and to photograph their situation, but also to talk to them and write a report about that. And we thought it's an innovative way again of generating debate and finding topics to cover in the issue. And alongside that, we had serious articles debating the theories and the context of China's intervention in Africa. By, for example, Faxon Banda, who is now at UNESCO, was debating how China's intervention has historical roots, but also opens up new questions about China's imperialism, China becoming economically involved, but looking for an appropriate cultural kind of angle to intervene and support its economic investments. So that issue was also very important. And so that the visual essay format has been very, very good for us. And we have had also the usual book reviews. We have a book review included in every issue. 6 articles, 6 serious academic articles, 6,000 words each year. Somebody sends us an article which is 3,000 words, we don't consider. 4,000 words, we send it back, it's a waste of time. 5,500, we are thinking that it's closer, but we are telling the authors to expand their arguments so that it's at least 6,000 words. But we have also had the top end people submitting 10,000 words articles. With those ones, we say, okay, we accept it, but we expect you to revise it after feedback from the reviewers. So you have to have submission guidelines and stick to them. So 5,500, depending on the topic and how it's written, we are normally saying to people they should expand their argument so that it's at least 6,000 words. And this has sort of worked, and we have so far had 148 submissions since 2008. We have published half of them, and we have had call of papers. I think we did not publish call for papers that much. I think the journal is becoming known. After publication of an issue, we circulate. I think some of you may have come across our messages on IMCR links, ICA this, saying that there's a new issue, these are the topics. We use media anthropology lists, we use African mailing lists, and these in turn, I think, generate their like call for papers, but they are showing results here. That this you can publish in this, like what these people have done. So we have had 148 articles, and this within 3 years, which is within 3 years since 2009, which is quite a lot, because we publish, if you want, about 18 per year. Yeah? 3 issues, 6 articles per issue, 18 per year. So we are not complaining. If we get 50, then we choose 18. Yeah? That's fine. Some of the articles we commission, if, for example, there's an issue that we want to cover. In the first issue, we really wanted to introduce this journal as an intervention because we are very concerned that African media we are very concerned that media and communications in general was informed by scholarship that was coming from Anglo-Saxon world, yeah, which was not including examples from other parts of the world. Yeah. So we were in tandem with the initiatives, say, in Asia, which were trying to rethink or contribute different, evidence to broaden the debates, Some people talk of de-westernizing. Some people talk of now people are using southernizing and the north and south. There's a lot of terminology. But we pitched it in there, that the Journal of African Media Studies, it's not apologetic. Our aim is really to contribute to this aspect of de-westernizing, to this aspect of, of providing evidence that other than what exists, and to also to contribute to a real paradigm shift where people in the sort of core, where people based in Britain, in America, are familiar with what is going on in African media research and in debates that are outside the Anglo-Saxon remit. And we were not apologetic about how JAMS was going to contribute to the ongoing repositioning of media and cultural studies outside this axis, the Anglo-American axis. And we were thinking that it was something that would remarkably help to shift, the concerns in theory, because theory for a long time has been based upon data from just two spots, Britain and the United States, to be very specific. And John Downey, for example, has lamented about this fact. And we are thinking that the field will need to rejuvenate itself from here, but also from the to do that in relation to what was happening in Africa, because in Africa the media training was very much framed within colonial kind of frameworks. So they needed to decolonize, they needed to try to open up. So this decolonization, internationalizing, de-westernizing, all these things happening, we're thinking that our journal was pitched, was trying to contribute to that. So our first issue, we then asked scholars, who we thought were working in this, people like Kiale Tomaseri, who's been teaching in this field for a long time. He's based in South Africa, one of the senior academics there. We asked him to write. He wrote a very provocative article. Then we approached also other people, we put in an editorial, and that issue was very, very successful and very provocative. It sort of was a launch issue to announce our arrival. And then the follow-up issues, we looked at, we accepted submissions from people, but I'm fortunate because I'm working also at Westminster, where I'm able to organize events that support the work that I do. So from the events, we also get some papers that we consider for publication, but not as conference papers. They go through review. I know we talk about reviewing, but these papers we can ask scholars who have, presented on a topic that is of interest to us, to expand on it, to meet the requirements of the reviewers. Our reviewers are very tough. We have a rejection rate of about 80%.
Wow.
But in some cases, because we are thinking, okay, if, for example, all the papers from Africa are rejected, I'm not saying our reviewers are from here, our writers are from Africa, but we are very sensitive about what this means about our enterprise, what it means. So we look also at each paper is reviewed by at least 3 reviewers under normal circumstances. That is, if they respond. So we will not send it back to the author unless we have 2 reports. And this has delayed the processes sometimes, because when it's summer holidays or when people take time to review. And this becomes a sore point with our contributors. Some say, no, my paper has been in review for 6 months, for 3 months. As a contributor to other journals, like I know my first item was published in Media and Society. Media, Culture and Society, it takes 2 years. Now I think it takes more. And it was a sore point, I used to meet some of the colleagues in the department, editing media, culture and society, people like Nicholas Garner and Collins Fox. But these people are so hard-hearted, how can they do that? But now I quite understand how these things work. It's very easy if something remains in review for long. Yeah? You can get to 2 years quite easily. And that's not good. We are trying to minimize. When a person submits, we are saying to a person, it will take 12 weeks, yeah, before you hear back from us, yeah. 12 weeks. 12 weeks, as you know. And then we give the reviewers 4 weeks to review. And then in between, we are sending reminders. We are saying, please respond to please send us a report. But this is voluntary business, yeah. They are doing us a favor. You can only push it as much, So it requires, tact. It requires also treating them as individuals with their own, pressures. So you are working with people. Then as we are mediators, we are also going to the writers and reassuring them that we are doing something on our part. In very exceptional cases, I then ask say members of the editorial team to review. But in some cases, you don't want that to influence if a person has been complaining about their paper, you don't want that to influence the way their paper is regarded as well by members of the editorial team. So it can work both ways. You want the experts on the topic that has been proposed to say something or to suggest alternatives. In some cases, it generates 4 reviews. The reviewers are very tough. I won't mention names. There was this professor from Finland who got feedback, and she thought the reviewers were really elaborate. They're writing 2 pages, 1.5 pages of comments, and really engaging with the article. And she's felt that she's, I think, in 60 something, and she's felt that in her whole life she has never come across reviewers who go to town like this. Yeah. so yes, we are very lucky to have a body of reviewers who are very thorough, and this helps. And some enjoy, some come to us to ask, please give us reviewing opportunities. And also, when you are sending to reviewers, these are also potential sources of articles for you. They normally send us articles as well. But if somebody is your reviewer, there's a danger of publishing them more often than others. Yeah? So also mindful of not having, 2 or 3 people dominating the discussion in the journal. But you want you want debates to happen. You want certain topics to be, revisited where possible. You want people to quote from previous papers. But you don't want also the journal to be, a one-person journal. There should be a delicate balance, yeah. So we have had a range of issues. Some, like I said, arising from the events that we organize. We've had a series of events run by the Africa Media Center, or people coming to our other conferences at Westminster, like the Audiences Conference. You see a paper and then you say, this sounds very, very good. Do you mind if you submit it to JAMS? Yeah? Or you go to a conference, IMCR, ICA, you see somebody presenting and you think, okay, this might be very good for our journal. Then you give them your card, yeah? and persuade them to submit. Yeah? And this has worked. You go to Africa to events and you distribute the cards and say, if you are interested, we'll be happy to consider, your papers. And this has worked very, very well, because Intellect are supportive. They're giving you, they're giving us a lot of cards to distribute at events, posters even. Thanks, Nico. Thanks, Sarah. I think they are very, very supportive in that regard, and we feel grateful. So when I go to, say, Highway Africa, I don't know whether anybody has been to Highway Africa in South Africa. Massive conference, 700 journalists, academics, professionals, media development experts. I go with the big package of cards for the journal, and it helps, because this is where we want to be known in Africa, and this actually helps. And then our other issues, we don't prioritize special issues, but we sometimes publish special issues. There's a reason why I say that. Special issues are very good. They sort of zero in on particular debates. They help you to get, you tip into a particular debate. You say, okay, this is what we think are the most interesting papers about this debate from our end. Yeah. But however, when we are receiving papers from contributors, they tend to fit more into general issues. General issues are the ones that are not necessarily linked to any particular theme. But although when you start editing them, you can realize there are some relationships between the papers. But so we tend to publish. We want to publish what is submitted to our paper, to our journal, and try to create some relationships within those papers. We tend to follow the queue. Like you see, you have friends, who say, okay. Like Sally was saying, a journal is about digital television. You have friends who say, well, I have this paper, there's ref next year, can you publish it? I think it sounds very good, but you also don't want to jump the queue. If there are people who have submitted, you want to think of them as good sources, and you want to publish them first. Yeah. Of course, the friends, you can tell them there's a queue, it's a very busy journal, but when we have time, we'll consider yours to go through the normal channels. We will not fast track it. But if it's responding to a particular debate, you may feel, this is the one that will. So it's something that is up to the editorial team. There's no fixed, approach to that. Then we have also had. I think we also have had some submissions coming from people who are specializing in film. Like there was this colleague at SOAS. She said, she has these essays from junior researchers, people who just finished their master's degrees. And she was a very energetic professor, Lydia Daji. And she said, Winston, I can edit a very interesting issue because I have 6 papers that I will tell you. Then we ask people to submit a rationale for their special issue, which again, it's not only about Winston. I will take it to the editorial team and say, colleagues, somebody is proposing this. How does it seem to you? How does it make sense? And give them a chance to really participate in that. I may have my views. I will say, I have my views, but let's have an editorial meeting. We have editorial meetings at the end of the month. At the end of the month, we are based in different countries, but thanks to Skype, we have editorial meetings as if we are in the same place via Skype, where we circulate issues, we circulate the minutes, and we are trying to catch up with submissions, with review reports, because we have to send feedback we promise people your feedback will come after 4 weeks. So the conferences at the end of the month, I devote a morning 2 hours to discussing with my colleagues at the end of the month, to try and catch up on. If I discovered when I'm traveling in the summer, and if this does not happen, it can create havoc to the whole program. Some things will be reviewed for longer. So it has become very important that whatever I'm doing, this editorial meeting via Skype at the end of the month, it has to be done with colleagues to try and update the submissions table, to send review reports, but also to allocate reviewers. It's not only me who know reviewers, but they also know reviewers. So we work together to try and allocate correct reviewers for each paper. And this sort of works, and 148 submissions, it has worked very well. Do we reject papers outrightly? Yes, we have. I said those which are shorter than usual. We have done that, and there are also others we think are not appropriate to our journal. Like we have had submissions from India, which we thought were not really for African media studies. We have had some submissions which were perhaps too scientific, too technical, which we thought were not really what we were trying to do. And we are not shy to say to a person, well, perhaps consider sending it to another journal. This is not really what we are doing. But reject also suggesting an alternative is more polite, and it works well. Then I would say I can go on and on. Do I have more?
Yeah,
How much time do I have?
What, till 12? So.
Oh, about 12. Okay. There are some things that I can mention as well. In terms of managing the journal, we have done it manually until recently. Sarah has given me now the online submission system. It was there. But we have used a manual table. We have created a table which captures submissions. We have thought that it's much more efficient for us to use the table. When we receive something, we log it in, and then we allocate reviewers, we put their email addresses. But I think technology has come to help. I'm sure we are just in the process of migrating to the online submission system, which I think will help to create efficiencies. Perhaps some of the things that I do, like I communicate to reviewers, to contributors, to say, this is feedback on your article. Perhaps some of these things will be automated. If somebody sends a report, maybe they are getting a response automatically. It's all recorded. So I'm sure the future will be looking much better. And in terms of the publications we have had so far, I talked about the fact that our goal has been to reposition media and cultural studies outside the Anglo-American axis. Up to 60%, one would say, of our publications so far have been by African scholars. That is, scholars based in Africa. And we have tried also to cover different regions, topics about different regions. For example, in terms of West Africa, we have published material from Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Liberia, Cameroon. East Africa, we have had contributions from Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda. From Central Africa, we have had the Congo. From Southern Africa, we have had Zimbabwe, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Malawi. But I think, as you heard from what I said, that when you have the visual essay, it allows you to do more things as well, and to make up for areas that we are not covering. Our challenge has been especially to generate enough material on the Francophone, Lusophone African countries. It is not easy because of language issues, but also because I think the Portuguese, academic world has drifted on its own. The Anglo world has drifted on its own. There's segregation between between different language spheres. The Spanish world, you find that academics from Spain may not be very familiar with what is going on. There is a better communication, a little better with the Francophone, but still quite a lot is unknown between the Francophone and that. So this has affected us to some extent. When you look at these former Portuguese, French countries, you find that it has been very difficult because of historical reasons to create bridges. But we are still trying to make sure that our journal is more inclusive. One thing I'll mention in terms of Africa, our fortune has been that with Intellect, they are also offering the journal free of charge to 36 of the poorest countries in Africa, which helps. Whether they actually take up these opportunities, but on their website they say that the journal is available to those who are from these poor countries. And we wanted to open access, which they provide. One journal is open every time they change from issue to issue, which is very good. But to have 36 African countries, institutions from these countries having access to our journal, we thought this is really what we wanted. This is good for us. And we thought it was something that should be promoted. But I can go on talking. I think it's important that you ask me questions. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask you about when you get the 3 reviews in, if they're very different, they take opposite positions on the paper, do you make a steer on that? Do you express a preference to the author, or do you just send it as it is and let them deal with the diversity of views?
I think that's a very good question. With reviewers, sometimes they get carried away. Sometimes people have a bad day. To be honest, and the language,
a different paper,
and the language can be really abusive sometimes.
Right.
This person should not publish at all. So we sanitize the comments.
Okay.
We edit them and make sure that things that are irrelevant or that are, because there are things that they should be saying to us as editors, which we can say, okay, that's fine, we can. But we have a responsibility to communicate in a civilized way to the contributors. But your question is, sometimes if they're saying different things and they are not really, or contradictory things for that matter, because what we do is not rocket science, isn't it? It can be very subjective depending on who is speaking, where are they from, and whether they have had a bad day. So yes, we look carefully at, through the comments, and we work with the author to address comments that we think are enhancing the article. Right. There are some which are interesting. There are some reviewers, they want the authors to write other articles rather than what. Because it's like you know about it, that there are people who don't engage with the paper. Sometimes they are actually offering also other things that they know, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, But the task at the end is to try and improve the paper and to make sure that it's fit for publication. So we look, we don't. We used to, in the first days, in the interest of transparency, we used to copy in the reviewers, blind copy them. Yes, we blind copy them, then we send to the author, to show the author that this is, we are sending your feedback, we are taking it serious. But then we realized that
You've sanitized it.
it doesn't work well. Yeah. So we take the contributor, and then we receive the feedback, and then we compare the notes. We would have read the article as well, and because we are interested in it, so we focus on things that will enhance the article. But in most cases, 90% or 99% of the cases, the comments are so good that we send them to the authors as they are. In some cases, 0.1%, yeah, we have to perhaps withhold a few sentences to make sure that it's all good. Yes.
Very quick. Thank you for your presentation. I know that sometimes when you send back the reviews, you might also choose to give the writer an overall summary of the reviews. Do you do that? So you say this is generally the feedback you received, and then see attached the reviews. Do you do that as well?
Yes, we do that. We sort of say, as you see from the feedback, because we are very we force the reviewers to say, whether this should be accepted, rejected, or it should be, accepted, but we ask the author to make major changes there. So we then tell the writer that, look, the reports are mixed, comments. Yeah, in our view, the most important, comments here are about, having to do more empirical kind of research, or going back to the library to improve on your conceptual frameworks. Yeah? So we tend to underline what we think are the major kind of issues. But in some cases, these are so clear that we don't even have to do that. Yeah. Thank you.
I have a number of related questions.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
In terms of the peer review, first of all, I was wondering whether it's a good idea. Obviously, it doesn't seem like you use that, but to ask the reviewers to do reports for you as editors and sanitized versions for the authors. Because we're thinking perhaps of doing something like that, in which case, and if basically when the reviewer responds to the editor, it might be a bit harsher, but if you want to address the author, they might be a bit more polite. I don't know whether that works or not. Yes. Obviously, you haven't taken that route.
No, I think it's those kind of formats are rising from using the online system.
Right.
Where things are going, maybe going straight to the author. But I think if you have been a reviewer, the last thing you want is to be asked to do more than what is necessary.
No, but then you copy and paste and just delete some bits that are a bit.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, I quite understand your point. But what I'm saying is we are mindful, these reviewers are so hard pressed for time. Yeah? We don't want them to ask them to do more than what is necessary. So if they are writing 2 reports, already that's too much. Yeah?
Okay.
You want to keep the relationship with the reviewer, simple and straightforward. Some would write a paragraph.
Yes.
Some would write 2 pages, like I said, which shows engagement with the paper. Yeah? We, as far as I know, at the moment we don't have any stipulated length in terms of how much they write about. But it has worked out that if a paper is really not good, it has really produced a lot of comments from the reviewers. Or if it's good, maybe they are just expanding on the argument. So we also look at them and say, okay, it's a sign that they are onto something really special.
Does the online system have, I'm asking about Sarah, does it have more setup? Because actually we're very keen to not do a manual style, but do a more
Yeah, I mean we're
in have a standardized.
We're in a situation of where we're testing it at the moment, but certainly you can set it up so that people will leave comments and you can set different levels of who gets to view the comments.
Okay, we could actually perhaps, I don't know, we can talk about whether it's open to customization, the actual system.
The system that we're trialing is very customizable, so you can have different elements.
Okay, that sounds interesting, yes.
But make sure you don't drop the wrong comment with the wrong
I know.
to be put on Facebook or WhatsApp.
Can I ask one related question now? You said you're working as a team of editors.
Yes.
Which is what we will do. Do you tend to edit each issue altogether, or do you have some issues which are, like two of you edit one and...
That's an interesting question.
And also the other related thing to that is, does one editor tend to take the lead of particular articles, or do you do them all jointly? So they're two different questions, but again...
Yes. That's very... I'm the principal editor.
Right.
And then I have two associate editors.
Right.
And then I have a reviews editor.
Okay.
Right. I treat these as editors, with full capacity to make decisions. Like when I ask them, guys, what do you think about this proposed special issue? I am asking for their contribution, but of course it will be me who can also overrule if there's if they are disagreeing or if there's But I value their submission. In some cases, I have also allowed them to edit, issues that are of interest to them, and we take, like there are some, like now I'm trying to write, and I say, guys, can you also, chip in? So how it has worked now is that I have out of the 4, I have 3 of them also offering to edit issues, not necessarily special issues, but from the general pool. They will work with us when they are editing. By editing an issue, it means they are in charge of selecting the articles and then running them past me and saying, these are the articles that I have selected for the issue. Is it okay? And then I'll say, okay, but why don't you do it this way? Why don't you suggest this way? And then, because everything is copied in among the 4 of us, we are trying to communicate. And then if it's about a report, a review, what has happened is that when people send their papers, we put them on the table, we allocate reviewers, and then I think you find that editing a journal is really it will take up your time if you try and monopolize all the tasks. So what I've done with my team is to use this editorial meeting at the end of the month, but also to allocate tasks and to rotate and to create a team spirit as much as possible, where people really believe that they are part of the team, they are working, and their contributions are valued. So I, for example, would say, okay, we're sending out articles for review, and all the reports to the authors have to be sent back by me. I will send the reports to the authors. And then we have the editorial meeting at the end of the month. And I source articles just like they distribute cards and source articles, and we work towards a common project.
But you always, apart from the issues that you give them to edit, you are the main editor.
I'm the main editor.
Back to you ultimately. So
but if they edit an issue, like now I have an issue, the last one was edited by Ngosin Jela, who is in Norway, and he puts his name as the editor of that issue. I don't have problems with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the next issue is being edited by Wendy Williams, one of the 4, and it's fine. Then the next issue will be edited by Monica. I will edit the spring issue.
Right.
I don't have problems with that. But I'm still the main person overseeing the whole thing.
Yes.
If there are problems, the buck stops here.
That's fine.
Yes. I get this stick. Sometimes people write and say things like that. So I take it.
That's fine.
Yeah, and that's a model I think which a lot of our journals will use. If they've got 2 or 3 editors, they'll kind of rotate. So one of them will do 1 issue per year and kind of take ownership for that issue. And kind of spreads the workload, because as Winston says, it's quite heavy.
It is quite heavy. It can be daunting. Yeah, it can be.
Can I ask you, going back to what we were talking about earlier, if an article that's been submitted is categorically rejected by reviewers, do they still get feedback?
Yeah, the writers. Yes, I will send them the feedback, and I will normally This is a very interesting question, because sometimes people have been waiting for 2 months, 3 months for their feedback. Then it comes and it's negative. What we do is to say, look, the reviewers have really looked at your article and came up with a number of issues. It's not ready for publication in its current format. We recommend that you revise it, but instead of sending it to us, try to publish it as a book chapter or as a paper in some other publication. It has a lot of good things, but it has also a lot of things that needs addressing. And at the moment, it's not possible for us to publish it. Some people would be encouraged by that polite remark and would want to send it back. If the reviewers are mixed, if say 2 out of 3 reviewers or 1 out of 3 reviewers find it positive, and then 2 find it negative, what we tend to do is to give the author, depending on the issues raised, more time to revise the article. Say, okay, why don't you enjoy your Christmas? Sometime, end of February, send us a revised version. And that sort of works, because we are not saying no, but we are saying there are a number of issues that needs addressing, and we are allowing more time. But if we have more submissions and we don't have time to waste, we go into the chapter, kind of recommendation, and we say it's not possible to publish your article. However, it may work as a chapter. We encourage you to try to look out for calls for book chapters.
And your peer review group, how many do you have? And do they change all the time, or are they stable?
They change all the time. You can be a peer reviewer, depending on, because we are not also just looking for African sort of academics. Saying if it's good for me, it's good for you, it's good for everyone. We are using reviewers from America, Australia, from all over. People who may be subject experts, or people who may have interest in the topic, but are we using certain people again and again? There are some very good, sweet reviewers. We would want to use them all the time, because they return the work in good time and useful feedback. But we are aware, we are mindful not to overburden our reviewers. Maybe we come back to them after a year or so.
Do you ask the authors to suggest reviewers?
No ways. No ways. No ways. But it would be interesting. But we don't. No, we don't do that. Maybe it would help things, but we are hoping that because if they suggest they are professor, for example, then it's one leg in. We tend to find our own reviewers, and it's blind peer reviewing. That's why this can be very vicious, can be very brutal sometimes. And we think the process works well if there's that that cover. Yes. In some cases, I think you have done it. You meet a person and you say, "Okay, this is right. I reviewed this." But normally, you're not supposed to say that. Yes. Sorry.
You mentioned trying to get more contribution from Francophone and Portuguese-speaking areas, and that's something that in our journal we're looking at, because we want to get a digitalization of digital television development outside of Europe, which is finished. But English has been an issue, and there seems to be a balance between see good scholarship with bad English, or perhaps poor scholarship being hidden by English, poor English. So I'm wondering how you might handle that when you're dealing with contribution from these non-native areas, and also what are the things that you're trying to do to get more submissions from those places?
Yes, I think it's a very important person. In our constitution, when we started, we had, for example, one colleague, Maria Way. She's now retired from the university, but she's still a member of the team. We invited Maria Way because she volunteered. She said she would look at the papers that are written by non-natives, and try to bring them up to near native kind of standard English without interfering with the meanings. It's a special kind of, because you don't want to edit them to the extent that it interferes with the meaning as well. So Maria was our way of, she was our weapon of doing this. But however, in general, Intellect offers very, very good support as well. But they don't want to interfere with the content of your journal. They want you to have done, most of the editing in terms of the issues, the kind of the subject. But in terms of the language, they offer excellent support as well. They have copy editors who are able to work, I think, with text from different writers. Am I right, Sarah?
Yeah, we have different levels, but we would expect it to be kind of submitted at a level where the copy editor isn't doing kind of any structural work to it. It needs to be of a standard to have it.
Yes, because it will interfere with the meaning as well. Then it's so most of the initial editing will need to be done by you to make sure that at least they are communicating their ideas in a clear way. And Intellect are very good in finishing up the job.
We have a few other journals, for example, Studies of Russian and Soviet Cinema, where the editor will actually work quite closely with authors if maybe their first language isn't English. She will look at it, and if she does want to publish but they do need help with the language, she either helps them with that, or then the contributor can pay for kind of an English language edit to get their work up to a standard. So often if it's a case that it's good scholarship but poor English, if you've got someone who can kind of do that initial reading of it and make that call, then the contributor will kind of work on their article to bring it up to a level.
Is that something done before it goes to reviewers or after?
Before it goes to reviewers. Otherwise reviewers will... Because we had the debate with members of the editorial team that if you send work that is substandard to your reviewers, and they will not respect you. So our editorial team is very clear about the fact that you have to send papers that are good to you. If they are good to you, if they look good to you, then they should be good to them at least. Then there are issues about pedagogy. There are issues about the actual research element that you can engage with. Yes.
Well, two questions again. One is, if a paper is so bad, I think you probably addressed it, I want to clarify now, that you don't think it's worth do you sometimes not submit them to reviewers?
Yes.
You do that.
We
so
can send it back to the
selection
author.
you do by yourself, in which case you just... and then you only say that it's not appropriate because it doesn't fit the...
we say this is not...
but not if it's of an academic...
For example, we have had submissions that, detail the methodology, some which are like...
some which are just bad scholarship.
Maybe they are also taken from, PhD thesis. They are not thought out clearly as journal articles, with a thread driving, with an argument, which they are trying to sustain. And if they are that, poorly put together, and it's very clear to us, we simply, tell the authors that this is not going into our journal.
Okay, that's fine.
They need more time.
The other question, and this could be a short answer, is the submissions, are they blind? I mean, when somebody submits to the journal, do you know who submits to the journal?
We know who submits.
You do?
Yeah.
Because we were thinking of whether having a blind submission system where it's more fair.
Well, I've talked to some people who are saying now even the reviewing should happen online, openly.
Oh.
Where you put a paper there, like all my papers, the 148.
Reviewing like Wikipedia.
Almost like Wikipedia style, where people are actually sending in feedback, and then once it's agreed, then you take it for publication. but it will not be new for Sarah. It will not be good for the for the business of journals. But people are thinking that
that's another thing, though.
the reviewing.
That's another philosophy.
They are thinking that reviewing, instead of hiding the names, you should.
No, I'm thinking in terms of because
I should be open about
no,
it.
if you actually know something sent by a professor, something you might respond to differently than if you know some very kind of strong.
No, we will know, but our reviewers will not know.
No, I'm talking about you, not your reviewers. The reviewers are not know. That's standard practice.
For me, if you are,
when you receive things, if there is an online submission system, you might be blind. I mean,
Yeah.
I know some journals do that. That's
no, for me, I may be impressed by a professor's work, yeah, but I'll put it to test out there, to people like you. If you are not impressed by the professor's work, there may be a professor. It doesn't matter, if what they are writing in that case is not good,
yeah.
It's not, it's not suitable, then they get the stick. I know a Professor Korig who said. I think one of the reviewers was saying that they need to refer to more sources. And they said, I used 100 sources for this article. What more can I do? But then I said, well, it's a requirement from our reviewers. You have to do that.
So is that alongside, is it across all the journals there, like that, or it varies?
Yeah, the editor will always know.
You always will know, okay.
Yes. So the editor will know because
I know some journals are blind submissions as well. That's why I'm thinking.
Because you have to email them back.
No, it's electronically done.
Oh, it's electronic.
It's electronic.
They are using
That's
some
you don't actually know. It just
some
comes to you
ID
as a
numbers.
paper.
Oh, okay.
And if it's electronic,
But-
then it comes completely. Unless somebody told you that I'm submitting it about that, but otherwise you just don't know.
Yeah, but I don't. What I think I don't see. They're thinking. What do they say that if you know who has submitted, then
Well, the idea
you
is
fast track
brings
it in the
apparently
system, or
very
what?
strange results. Apparently, that process.
That when is it from?
That's sometimes unexpected outcomes. Some papers that you don't expect, people whose work you wouldn't expect have been rejected does get rejected.
Sorry, can I just butt in
Sure.
here?
Yes,
Because I think we are here for understanding intellect's policy.
Yeah, that's why I want.
So we just go by intellect's policy.
Yeah.
If we were to run a different type of online journal, then we would
No, that's not
discuss
an online
that policy. So I do believe I've been reviewing papers for the past 10 years, and you might be sometimes a bit disappointed that you get a paper from someone who's quite well known in your field, a professor, for example, and you just use different terminology in terms of giving them their feedback in a more collegial manner than, but you still have to keep the standards of your own journal there.
Yes.
So it helps to submitting, at least in this context.
If you are saying that there is negative feedback, and how do you communicate to this professor? I think they are expected. They are at professorial level. They know, they take us.
They know the drill.
Yeah, they know the
You
drill.
have,
Yes.
you have to play the game. I mean, for a non-intellect journal I also work with, we had coming up to the last ref, we actually had one of the people who was the unit of assessor for that ref. And he sent something in, and it was of such poor scholarship that you would have actually beaten an undergraduate for it. And we just had to play the game,
Yes.
And the game was?
Sorry, we can't publish this.
And do you do A, B, C, D? They have to, yeah.
Excuse me, do you mention the reviewers?
Do we mention? No. You mean for each issue to say the reviewers for this issue?
For each issue, or every couple of issues, or for every article?
I don't know. I know in America it's becoming like a requirement that for people to be considered for tenure, they should do the reviewers and all that. But here it's not a big deal. So we want to keep them anonymous, and we think that it's important that they are not, there's no fallout from whatever they would have said. Yeah. So we don't publish the names of our reviewers. We keep them anonymous. Yeah. For a good reason.
We do have some journals that do at the end of a volume publish a list of reviewers'
As an
names.
international scientific committee or something like that, they incorporate the name of the reviewers and international journalists to that.
I was going to ask about your international advisory. Do any of them review? And and also how do you use them in the process?
Yes, that's a very good question. Do they review? Some of them do. We now know from the list that if you send it to so-and-so, it doesn't come back. If you send so-and-so, it comes back maybe after a long time. So yes, we use them as ambassadors of the journal. We think that these are scholars who have achieved, great heights in this field. Yeah? These are role models. Yeah? So when we have them there, we are also asking them when, for example, we have sticky issues that we want to resolve. Like there was a time when we're discussing the name of the journal, we're discussing general issues about, we're involving them. But if you involve, say, 18 people, or you talk to them regularly, it may be too big a circle. If they all respond, that means many emails, and you have some will respond at length, some will respond, and you are very busy already dealing with the individual contributors. So yes, as reviewers it will work if they are experts in some of the areas mentioned. But in most cases, they are there to support the journal. They mention on their websites that they are, they are on the advisory board of our journal, and for us, that we think it gives us more credibility because these are people who can vouch for us. They saw us, you set it up, and they know how it works. We wish there was a forum where we can have a meeting with them to find out what else they can do, but in the very busy world, we rarely meet them. We meet them on the academic circuit when we go to conferences, events. We thank them for
Can
that.
I ask you a question about non-standard solutions? One of the things that attracted me to Intellect was their openness to articles that were perhaps written by non-academics. It took the kind of form that you were describing, which is the picture submission.
The visual essay, yes.
Given the nature of the journal that I'm involved in, which is to do with contemporary Chinese art, getting that kind of material, some of which we included in the pilot issues, is actually quite important. So alongside academic essays, the curators to write, and maybe engagement with artists, and certainly the picture essays is very interesting. Could you say a little bit about how you handle those kind of submissions? Because I think you've already touched on, as well as the picture essay, I think you mentioned getting perhaps non-academics, but journalists and others involved with the media actually
involved. Yes. We are very keen to broaden the debate and to get insights from media practitioners, from people who are from artists like you're saying. We have something to contribute that can steer debates, that can provoke more discussions about specific topics. It can be about censorship. You can get somebody to do visuals about say graffiti, people who are
So technically, how do you handle that? Because those writers aren't necessarily going to present in the way that we're usually kind of peer reviewing. So how do you get that through the peer review process?
It may take a lot of effort on you as editorial members. We have worked, for example, with some contributors who are not academics, who are not used to the conventions. What you do is to give them more chance to submit and resubmit. It's not subjected to peer review. This is subjected to editorial review. If it's good for the editorial members, the 4 plus the 7, we can approve it and say this visual essay is very good, it's doing this. But I think it's where you have to be generous as an editor if you are dealing with this constituency. It may involve more than one submission.
and just a quick question,
and more
just in terms of proportions, do you have a view about what might be an acceptable proportion of your output which will be given over to standard submissions. So within within a year,
Yes.
how many articles might you publish of that kind?
Like we have in an issue, we have 6,000 word academic articles. Yeah. Then we have 1,000 word visual essay, accompanied by 10 to 12 images. Yeah?
Every issue.
Every issue.
Every
Every issue. Then we have film review,
Yeah.
which may or may not have visuals. Then we have book review.
So this is film review.
A film review.
Right.
A book review. Sarah was encouraging us to have, even the image of the book is there. If there is,
That's interesting.
It's these three, like the film review, book review, and the visual essay, which are about 3,000 words out of the lot. Yeah, we have 6,000 words times 3, 36,000. Then 3,000 words. So the journal is about 40,000. Yeah, words. Yeah.
Sorry, the other people that want to talk. One very quick thing. Do you ever use the conversation format? Where you get either a writer who's presenting something in the form of a conversation with other people, or two authors that are presenting as a conversation?
It's something we will use if you ask, but we haven't used it. But I can see ourselves interviewing, say, a musician, or interviewing an artist, or and for this visual format, just to vary the formats. But at the moment, we haven't used that. Yeah. But it needs flexibility. But our whole objective with that, we are very clear, is to try and generate, feedback. Or try and generate conversations,
Yes.
In some journals they have what is called commentary, commentary, which is like half-baked articles. Yeah, is it half-baked ideas?
Yeah, ours has commentaries, which are shorter, and also conference reports. And that's where, because there's industry involved, so it's not like just academic conference reports, but actually industry conference reports by somebody usually from the industry.
Yes, we would consider conference report. And people have also asked if we can publish a sample of, say, PhD abstracts, yeah, which are relevant to what we are doing. I thought it was a very good thing, but it's something we are still considering. But publishing PhD abstract, it's a very good thing. But it's something we are working on. Maybe, if Sarah allows, she gives us 1 or 2 pages, we can do that. But at the moment, again, it's to broaden conversation and to bring in new upcoming academics into the whole thing.
I think the policy of having, you've got your bulk of 6 essays, which never changes,
Yes.
but then there's certainly leeway around that to have different sections. And you can be quite transparent about, we have a commentary section and this is only the editor's decision, it's not a peer-reviewed section of the journal. It's a kind of more open to kind of do things.
Yes. And at the moment, we're also debating about, should we introduce articles in every issue? Should we write the editorial, repeating sometimes what is in the articles? My suggestion to the team was that perhaps we should write again, like a commentary on what is going on, and then ending with a review of the articles that are in the issue. Not to have this article does this article does this. We should be flexible. We should not keep on doing the same thing. But again, you'll be faced with that moment. Should you just straight away publish the 6 articles without any overview, without nothing to connect them? I don't think so. It's like you're dressed, but you're lacking something.
We would encourage definitely an editorial in every issue.
Have you run in your time? Have you run conferences based off the back of the journal?
Conferences at the back of the journal, not as such, but some of the issues have mapped onto the conference themes. Yeah. So it's first the conference, then papers, then we ask authors to revise them, make them 6,000, to use our submission guidelines. It's very important, every journal, journal should have submission guidelines. Yeah? If you're asking people to put the full stop before the last word, yeah, they should do that. That's what you want. Yeah? So yes, we ask people to revise, the articles before submission, according to our submission standards. Yeah? And we consider them. So we thank them for submitting their articles to be considered for publication. Nothing is guaranteed. Yeah.
Do you work with the authors when there's a need for image copyright?
This is we ask them to clear that first, but we also get help from Intellect, I think.
It is our policy that it's the contributors' responsibility to get permissions for all images that they use. We have a letter on the website that they can use as a template when seeking submissions. And if people come to us and say, often if they can't find who the copyright holder is, or there's some query, then we'll help in that case. But the first point is to kind of get the contributors to do it as much as they can. Yeah, before we'll get involved.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
So how many issues do you have in here?
3 issues per
3
year.
issues.
Yes.
And in each of those issues, you say you include a visual essay, a film review, and a book review.
Yes.
Those non-standard submissions, do you actually ask specific people to do them, or they get sent to you blindly? I mean, I would imagine that you ask people, but I'm not sure how you work.
It's a bit difficult to get reviews. You think people are watching films and theatre plays and
it's
things
not
like
something you say, well, I've submitted film
But
review.
we recently, about 3 months ago, our reviews editor had to write a call for papers. Yeah.
Right.
For a call for reviews, as it were.
Right.
Book reviews, film reviews.
Right.
And it generated a bit of responses, but it's something that is not very usual. People watch and they don't want to reflect on what they have done.
Mm.
So we approach people to say, okay,
Yeah.
you are teaching in this film department. If you have people who are willing to send us reviews, 1,000 words about what they watched, we are willing to consider that for publication.
And it's 1,000 word film review and 1,000 word book review.
Yes.
It's always one.
1,000.
And
Yeah.
one book, one film.
A person can also review multiple copies within that. Yeah.
Right.
We are flexible. If you submit a 2,000 word book review,
Yes.
and then our editorial is shorter, there are some,
That's it.
yes.
But for the visual lessons, you ask people to do that, or their artists decide to do that. I mean, again, I'm thinking in terms of how do you actually get those submissions.
Which one?
The visual.
the visual essays,
yeah. The images with.
We approach people, but in some cases, people come to us with already. Like the first one, it was by chance. This guy working in our contemporary media practice department, and he had been to Egypt and he had these images. Yeah. So it sort of worked by chance. So yes, we tend to approach people. We pitch ideas, and sometimes it happens. And now there are some photographers who know what we do. Like there was this guy who went to Togo, and he took pictures of, say, the emerging rich class and how they are consuming media. And we thought, okay, that's something interesting. Who knows what we know about Togo? What we know about what is going on. You tell us. But so we use a range of techniques to source articles, and part of it is to approach people we know. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Which is very good. Yes.
I'm very sorry I was late, so I'm sure that you might have
miss
already
much.
mentioned. Sorry, I did. Sorry, but I was just wondering whether you mentioned any kind of strategies to widen up the search for reviewers. Would you have your own networking with colleagues? I mean, you did mention you didn't want to abuse
the ones that are very good. Yeah.
So, what's the basic strategy for you know, you basically need new reviewers. How do you approach that issue?
I think much of it is driven by the types of articles that we are receiving.
Right.
For example, if it's something about the political economy of the media in Africa, I can send it to Graham Murdoch and say, Peter Golding, say, what do you make of this?
Obviously, everyone knows the major names in their fields.
Yes,
but
yes.
You need to widen the search.
To widen the search. So I'm not. I'm thinking we should. We are not. Although we are Journal of African Media Studies, we have been fortunate enough that we have worked with people who are also working in other areas. We are supportive. So, although they are writing about African media topics, the contributors have been also from outside Africa.
Right.
So the journal, when we conceived it, we thought it's building bridges. Yeah, African academics are too caught up in everything that is African, and academics here don't know much about Africa or are working on Africa, but without sufficient links to what is going on there. So the journal, we intended it as a bridge, but and it has worked well both in terms of peer reviewing, that people are not saying no to our review request just because we are African media. They are treating this as any other media topic.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I see.
And it has worked. We have had, for example, with one professor of law who has agreed to review an article about gays and homosexuals being targeted in Uganda, in which we thought, okay, that's good. So we are not using people on the continent only, because we need 3 reviewers for each article, and we give work to people who are on the continent, people who are in the diaspora from the continent, but also people who are from here, from America, from Australia. We are using the greater pool.
Okay.
Yes. So, but yes, in the wider context, we tend to fall back on certain names.
Right.
People who are, especially those who do the job well. We tend to say, okay, can you review this? But like I said, we are trying to go back to the same reviewer, say after 1 year at least.
Right.
Yes, we are allowing more. We are allowing more time.
Okay.
Yes.
Just
No,
one
it's
more question. It's a bit technical, and I know that it varies depending on which journal, but could you just tell us roughly how long it takes to get a journal off the ground, one issue off the ground? So we're preparing the spring edition.
Yes.
When did you start working on that? Is it between 8 months, 9 months, 6 months?
The spring edition now, the articles have already been reviewed. We have a pool of articles that have been reviewed. The authors write and say, when is my article published? And we say, well, it's in the queue, be patient. And then we give them also the opportunity to withdraw their articles at any stage if they are not interested. And we highlight that they should not submit it to any other journal whilst it's under consideration in our journal. As you know, nothing is legally binding here, but we are giving them also the intellect, contributors, contract when it's accepted, when it's going into an issue. Then that's where they know that they have a contract with the intellect. But how long does it take? I think now it's taking between 1 year and 1 year, 6 months.
So between 12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months. You submit an article, for it to appear in print, it can take 18 months. Yes. Taking into account the reviews, taking into account the cues that are already there, and making sure that it's...
That's from the perspective of those who submit, from the perspective of you who edits.
Or for us to edit, it's a 6-week cycle. They are very rapid, Once it goes to Sarah, she's Brilliant. You receive, copy edited articles. Then you give the authors a chance to change. Then at some stage, it's all into PDF. They are changing, according to lines, because they have already made it camera ready. I think she will talk about the process later. Yeah. But it's a 6-week cycle, which within a month it can. Sometimes they work very fast within those 6 weeks. Yeah. Yes. So it's all very good. A lot of authors have been surprised by the speed at which things work.